The rain hammered against the windows of our old craftsman house in Tacoma, Washington, like it was trying to wash away the last shreds of my sanity. I'd buried Sarah 3 months ago, her laughter still echoing in the empty rooms. But tonight, something worse clawed at me, a shadow slipping through the crack under the bedroom door. I froze in bed, heart pounding, as the knob turned slowly, and there he was, Bobby, my best friend since we were kids throwing rocks at the shipyards, standing in the doorway wearing Sarah's silk nightgown, the one with the lace trim she'd loved. His face, pale and streaked with tears, twisted in a mask of anguish that hit me like a freight train from the sound. "I'm sorry, Spence," he choked out, voice breaking like thunder over the Olympics. I couldn't let you grieve alone anymore." I bolted upright, the sheets tangling around my legs like restraints in some nightmare I couldn't wake from. Bobby, solid, dependable Bobby, the guy who'd held my hand at Sarah's funeral while I ugly cried into his shoulder, looked like a ghost of her, the gown hanging loose on his broader frame, the fabric whispering against the hardwood floor as he stepped closer. My mind reeled, a cocktail of rage and confusion exploding in my chest. Was this some sick joke? A way to mock my loss? Or worse, something he'd hidden all these years, bubbling up now when I was at my lowest? "What the hell are you doing?" I snarled, my voice raw from disuse, the words tasting like bile. He didn't flinch, just sank to his knees beside the bed, clutching the hem of the gown like a lifeline. His blue eyes I'd trusted more than my own, pleading for mercy I wasn't sure I had left to give. That night shattered everything. We'd grown up in this Rust Belt corner of the Pacific Northwest, two scrawny boys dodging our dad's tempers and dreaming of escaping to Seattle's glitter or Portland's weirdness. Bobby was the anchor, the one who patched me up after bar fights and drove me to community college when Sarah got sick. Cancer, stage 4, came out of nowhere 2 years into our marriage. She fought like a wildfire, but it devoured her anyway, leaving me a hollowed-out husk rattling around in a life that no longer fit. Bobby moved in right after the burial, crashing on the couch with his duffel bag and that unwavering loyalty, cooking chili from his mom's recipe and forcing me to eat when all I wanted was to starve the pain away. He never pushed, never pitted, just was there, like the evergreens outside, steady against the storms. But this was a gale force ripping through the roots. I grabbed his arm, yanking him up, the silk sliding cool against my fingers. "Talk to me. Damn it. Is this about pity? You think dressing up like her is going to fix me?" My voice cracked, betraying the sob lodged in my throat. He shook his head violently. Blonde curls, always a mess, like he just rolled out a fishing boat, sticking to his damp cheeks. "No, Spence. God, no. It's me. I've been carrying this secret since we were 16, and seeing you like this, breaking every night. I thought maybe if I could just be her for a minute, give you back that warmth." His words trailed off into a whimper, and that's when it hit me, not the absurdity, but the depth of his desperation. Bobby, the straight-arrow mechanic who'd dated half the girls in high school, was trembling in my dead wife's clothes, confessing something that smelled like love, forbidden and festering. I shoved him away, not hard, but enough to send him stumbling back against the dresser. A photo frame toppled, me and Sarah on our honeymoon in the San Juans, her red hair whipping in the wind, and glass shattered like my resolve. "Get out," I whispered, the fight draining from me as exhaustion crashed in. He did, slipping from the room like smoke, the gown trailing behind him a pale specter in the hallway light. I curled into the fetal position, the rain's rhythm mocking my sobs, and wondered if I'd just lost the only family I had left. Morning came gray and unforgiving. Coffee brewing itself on autopilot while I stared at the gown crumpled on the living room floor where he'd shed it like a skin. Bobby was gone. No note. No text. Just his truck keys on the counter. Engine still ticking cool in the driveway. He'd walked into the downpour, probably to his sister's in Puyallup, leaving me to drown in the silence. Days blurred into a fog of regret and fury. I called in sick to the warehouse job that barely paid the mortgage, pacing the house like a caged wolf, replaying that night in loops that twisted my gut. Why now? Why like that? Bobby and I had shared everything. First beers stolen from his uncle's cooler. Road trips blasting Springsteen. Even the night Sarah proposed to me in a Denny's booth. Him toasting with moons over my hammy. He'd been her biggest cheerleader, teasing us about tying the knot tighter than a fisherman's line. But beneath it, had there been cracks? Moments I'd missed. Like how he'd linger too long after hugs. Or the way his laugh would falter when Sarah kissed me goodbye. By Wednesday, the anger curdled into something sharper, betrayal. I drove to his shop off the interstate, a greasy haven of transmissions and torque wrenches where he fixed rigs for the loggers up in the Cascades. The place reeked of oil and stale coffee, and there he was, elbow deep in a Ford's underbelly, grease monkey as ever in his Carhartt jacket. He straightened when he saw me, wiping his hands on a rag, face ashen under the fluorescent buzz. "Spence," he started, voice thick, but I cut him off with a glare that could curdle milk. "You don't get to run?" "Bobby." Not after that stunt. We were in the back office. Doors shut against the clang of tools. The space cramped with calendars pinned to corkboard and a mini fridge humming like judgment. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed. That defensive posture I'd seen since we were teens scrapping over who got the last slice of pizza. I wasn't running. Needed air. To think. His eyes darted to the floor. Scuffed linoleum telling tales of spilled solvents and spilled secrets. Think about what? How to humiliate me more. The words lashed out, fueled by sleepless nights and a bottle of Jack that did nothing but amplify the ache. He flinched, and for the first time, I saw the boy he'd been, vulnerable, scared, peeking through the man's facade. Humiliate? Jesus. Spence, I was trying to help. You're killing yourself in that house. Ghosts everywhere. Sarah's clothes in the closet. Her side of the bed empty. I thought if I could just fill it, even for a night, give you a moment of peace. His voice cracked on her name, and something in me softened, just a hair, enough to hear the raw truth bleeding through. But truth was a double-edged blade. In a gown, pretending to be her, that's not help. That's delusion. Or worse, some twisted fantasy you've been nursing. I stepped closer, invading his space. The air between us charged like the storm fronts rolling in from the Pacific. His breath hitched, eyes locking on mine, and in that suspended beat, I saw it, the flicker of something deeper, not grief, but longing. For me. The realization slammed into me like a rogue wave, cold and disorienting. Bobby, my rock, in love with me? All those years, the easy camaraderie masking a one-sided ache? He broke first, turning away to fiddle with a stack of invoices. It's not a fantasy. It's real. Has been since that summer at Lake Caphausen, when you pulled me out of the water after I nearly drowned on that dare. You held me, Spence, and I knew then I wasn't like the other guys. But you had Sarah, and I buried it. For you. The confession hung heavy, the room shrinking around us, the distant whine of an air compressor underscoring the silence. I wanted to punch him, hug him, scream, anything to discharge the storm inside. Instead, I left, the door slamming behind me like a guillotine. Back home, the house felt bigger, emptier, Sarah's absence a void that Bobby's revelation only widened. I rifled through her things, not for comfort, but for clues, letters, photos, anything to make sense of the man who'd been woven into our lives like family. There was nothing. Of course, Bobby had been too careful, too selfless. That night, I dreamed of the lake, young and invincible, his hand slipping from mine into the depths. And I woke gasping, the first real tears since the funeral soaking my pillow. Forgiveness wasn't on the table yet, but understanding crept in, insidious as Puget Sound fog, whispering that maybe, just maybe, we'd both been pretending all along. Weeks dragged on, a tense standoff via texts, curt check-ins about bills and the truck. Nothing more. Tacoma's relentless drizzle mirrored my mood, gray skies pressing down as I threw myself into overtime at the warehouse, stacking pallets of lumber until my muscles screamed. It was a distraction, thin as wet paper, from the what-ifs gnawing at me. What if I'd seen it sooner? What if Sarah had known? She'd always said Bobby was the brother I never had, her arms slung around his shoulders in group hugs, oblivious or willfully blind. The guilt twisted deeper. Had my blindness hurt him more than her death ever could? Then came a call. Late October, leaves turning the color of old blood on the maples lining Division Street. My sister Ellie, voice tight over the line from her place in Spokane. Spence, it's Bobby. Accident on 512. Truck totaled. He's at Tacoma General, concussion. Broken ribs, but alive. The world tilted. Phone slipping from numb fingers as I grabbed keys. Rain slicking the windshield like accusations. I drove too fast, weaving through rush hour snarl, heart hammering a rhythm of regret. What if this was it? What if my last words to him were venom? The ER was a chaos of beeps and bleach. Fluorescent hell where families huddled like refugees. Ellie met me in the hall, her hug fierce, eyes red-rimmed. He asked for you. Wouldn't let the docs stitch him up till he knew you'd come. I nodded, throat too thick for words, and pushed through the curtain to his bay. There he lay, bruised and bandaged, for dripping saline into the crook of his elbow. That damnable vulnerability etching lines around his mouth. Our eyes met, and the dam broke, his first, a choked Spence, followed by my collapse into the chair, head in hands as sobs racked me. I'm sorry, we said in unison, the words overlapping like a clumsy duet. And for the first time since that night, laughter bubbled up, brutal but real. Nurses bustled in, shooing me out for x-rays, but the fracture had mended, if only a crack. Over the next days, as he healed in that sterile room overlooking the bay, we talked, really talked, peeling back layers of silence like onion skins, each revelation stinging but necessary. He confessed the gown was a desperate Hail Mary, inspired by a late-night grief group where someone spoke of embodying the loss to heal. I'd thrown it in the donation pile that morning. A small mercy. Discharge brought him home. To our home, the couch reclaimed with fresh sheets and a stack of takeout menus. No more pretending. We agreed, just honesty, fragile as autumn frost. But honesty unearthed more, my own buried feelings, stirred not by loss, but by his quiet strength, the way his hand on my shoulder now sent sparks instead of comfort. It terrified me, this shift, like stepping off a familiar pier into unknown currents. Yet in the quiet evenings, fire crackling in the hearth as we nursed beers and swapped stories of Sarah, her terrible karaoke, her love of clam chowder at Duke's, I felt the stirrings of something new, tentative and terrifying. Thanksgiving loomed like a bad omen. The holiday that used to mean Sarah's turkey disasters and Bobby's lopsided pumpkin pie, now a minefield of memories. Ellie insisted on hosting in Spokane, a neutral ground away from Tacoma's ghosts. And I agreed, partly for the drive, 5 hours of winding highways through the Cascades. Evergreens dusted in first snow to clear my head. Bobby rode shotgun, ribs still tender under his hoodie, fiddling with the radio until it settled on some classic rock station crooning about lost loves. "You okay with this?" he asked, voice low, as if the mountains might overhear. I gripped the wheel tighter, my 90s guardrails blurring past. "Ellie's got her new boyfriend, Mark or whatever. It'll be fine." Distraction, but it wasn't fine. The invitation had come with Ellie's gentle probe. Bringing Bobby? You two finally talking again? And I mumbled yes, ignoring the subtext. Bringing him felt loaded now, like parading a secret we hadn't named. We'd skirted the edges since the hospital, lingering glances over breakfast. His knee brushing mine on the couch during Seahawks games. Each contact electric, but unspoken. I was straight, damn it, or had been, with Sarah's soft curves and easy affection. This pull toward Bobby, rough-edged and familiar, felt like betrayal twice over. Spokane greeted us with crisp air and Ellie's bear hug at the door of her Craftsman bungalow, Mark hovering with a tray of spiked cider. Dinner was a whirlwind of forced cheer, Ellie quizzing Mark about his accounting job, me carving the bird with hands that shook from more than caffeine withdrawal. Bobby sat across from me, quiet, his smiles polite masks. But when our eyes met over mashed potatoes, something unspoken passed, warm and waited. Later, as Ellie and Mark cleared plates, he leaned in, breath tickling my ear. "She's watching us like we're a rom-com. Relax." Spence, his hand grazed my thigh under the table. Accidental, intentional, and heat flooded me, guilty and thrilling. The real bomb dropped after pie. In the living room aglow with string lights and a crackling fire. Ellie, tipsy on wine, pulled out old photo albums, the kind that dredge up skeletons with smiles. "Remember this one?" she crowed, flipping to a faded snapshot. Me and Bobby at 16, arms slung around each other at prom. Me in a rented tux, him in a borrowed one, both grinning like idiots despite him going stag. Sarah wasn't in the picture. She'd been my date. But the shot captured us mid-laugh, foreheads touching in that careless boyhood way. Ellie chuckled. "You two were inseparable. Sarah used to joke you'd run off together if she didn't keep Spence in line." The room stilled. Mark coughed into his napkin, oblivious, but Bobby's fork clattered against his plate, face paling. I forced a laugh, brittle as graham cracker crust. Yeah, wild times, but inside, turmoil churned. Ellie's words a mirror to truths we'd danced around. Did Sarah suspect? Had she seen what I hadn't? The evening unraveled from there, small talk fraying into yawns, and we crashed in the guest room. Twin beds, separated by a nightstand lamp casting long shadows. Sleep evaded me, the ceiling fan whirring accusations. Bobby's breathing, steady from the other bed, mocked my restlessness. Around 2 a.m., he stirred. "Spence, you up?" His whisper cut the dark. I rolled toward him, silhouette outlined in moonlight slanting through blinds. "Can't shut it off. The pictures." "What she said," he sighed, propping on an elbow, ribs protesting with a wince. "Ellie's always been perceptive. Sarah too. Probably. I tried so hard to hide it, joking about girls, double dates, but they knew. Forgave me for loving you from the sidelines." The admission hung, raw and unfiltered, and I crossed the gulf between beds in 2 strides, perching on his mattress. "Why tell me now, after everything?" His hand found mine in the dark. Calluses rough from wrenches, grip tentative. "Because losing you as a friend would kill me more than hiding ever did. And after the accident, life's too short for more regrets." His thumb traced my knuckles, a gesture so intimate it stole my breath. I didn't pull away. Instead, I leaned in, our foreheads touching like in that photo, the world narrowing to the scent of his soap, pine, and clean sweat, and the thud of my pulse. We didn't kiss, not then. It was enough to hold on, confessions spilling in murmurs, his first crush. Watching me kiss Sarah at homecoming and swallowing jealousy like broken glass. My own doubts. Post-cancer vigils where his presence comforted deeper than hers ever had. Dawn crept in, gray light revealing tear tracks on his cheeks. And we parted with a nod, the moment fragile as new ice. Breakfast was awkward, Ellie shooting knowing glances, but the drive home sealed it, his hand on my knee the whole way, a silent pact. Back in Tacoma, the thaw accelerated. We decorated for Christmas on impulse. Untangling lights on the widow's walk while Jingle Bell Rock blared from a boombox. Snow dusted the sound, rare and magical. And as we hung ornaments, Sarah's crystal star chief among them, Bobby wrapped an arm around my waist, pulling me close. She'd want this, he murmured, breath warm against my neck. Us. Happy. I turned, our lips brushing in a chaste press that ignited stars behind my eyes. It was tentative, exploratory, tasting of peppermint and possibility. And when we broke apart, grinning like fools, I knew we'd crossed a threshold. But thresholds have shadows. January brought the letter, innocuous envelope from Sarah's estate lawyer, tucked into junk mail. I opened alone, Bobby at the shop, expecting final paperwork. Instead, a codicil to her will, dated weeks before she died. To Spencer, if I'm gone and you're still lost. Look to Bobby. He sees you like no one else. Let him in fully. Love, your firecracker. My knees buckled, the paper crumpling in fists as sobs tore free. She'd known, all along, and in her grace, given permission I hadn't known I needed. I drove to the shop, letter clutched like a grenade. Bobby was under a Chevy, legs sticking out, humming off-key. Hey, man, early for lunch, he slid out, grease-smeared, concern etching his brow at my face. I thrust the paper at him, words tumbling. She knew. About you. Us. And she wanted this. His eyes scanned, widened, then filled as he crushed me in a hug, careful of ribs, our laughter mingling with tears on the oil-stained floor. That night, we burned the letter in the fireplace, ashes swirling up the chimney like released secrets. Curled on the couch, his head on my chest, I traced patterns on his arm, the TV droning some cop show neither watched. What now? I whispered, fear coiling despite the warmth. He tilted up, eyes steady. Now, we live. No more pretending. His kiss was deeper, assured, and I surrendered, the grief's sharp edges softening in his embrace. Spring unfurled hesitant, cherry blossoms along Ruston Way, a pink promise against the bay's steel blue. We hiked Point Defiance, hand in hand on trails where ferns whispered approval, picnicking with PB&J like kids. Bobby proposed therapy, joint sessions with a counselor specializing in grief and coming out late in life, and I balked at first. The idea of unpacking our mess aloud terrifying. But in DR, Hale's office, overlooking the Narrows, words flowed, my internalized shame from a Baptist upbringing, his fear of rejection rooted in a homophobic uncle's rants. Progress was slow, jagged, but real, nights when panic clawed, him holding me through it, mornings where coffee tasted like hope. Yet conflict brewed, insidious as tide pools hiding crabs. My buddy from the warehouse, Jake, cornered me one shift, beer breath hot. Heard you're shacking up with Bobby now. That's messed up. Man, Sarah's barely cold. The words landed like punches. Dredging doubts I'd buried. Was it disrespect? A rebound born of loneliness? I lashed back. Mind your business, but the seed took root, poisoning stolen moments. Bobby sensed it, withdrawing into long hours at the shop. Our touches turning tentative. The blow came Memorial Day weekend. Barbecues smoking up and down the block. Jake's crew invited me to a rager at his place. Cans of Bud, burgers on the grill, classic guy stuff. I went alone, needing normalcy, but it reeked of judgment. Sidelong glances and crude jokes about phase and confusion. Half buzzed. I stumbled home to find Bobby on the porch. Waiting, face stormy. Fun night, the sarcasm dripped, and I snapped. The alcohol loosening tongues. Yeah, with people who don't think I'm a traitor to my dead wife. He recoiled as if slapped, eyes flashing hurt. Traitor? I'm not the one running back to the bro pack when it gets real. The argument escalated, voices echoing off clapboard houses, neighbors' lights flicking on like spotlights. You think this is easy for me? He shouted. Loving you while you mourn her, pretending I'm second best? I hurled the truth back. Maybe you are. Maybe I don't know what this is. Grief or you or both. The porch light buzzed as he grabbed his keys. Truck roaring to life. Taillights vanishing into the night. Alone again, the house echoed with ghosts, Sarah's, now Bobby's. I collapsed on the steps, head in hands, the weight of my words crushing. Dawn brought clarity, sharp as salmon runs. I'd push him away to protect myself, but it was cowardice. Plain. Texts went unread, calls to voicemail. By Tuesday, desperation drove me to his sister's in Puyallup. Same place he'd fled months ago. She met me at the door, arms crossed. He's wrecked. Spence said some things about not being enough. Her eyes, so like his, softened. Fix it, or let him go. He was in the backyard, tinkering with an old mower, shoulders hunched. I approached slow, like a spooked deer. Bobby, he stiffened but didn't turn. Go home. Spence. The plea in his voice undid me. Can't. Not without you. I was scared, still am. But you're not second. You're everything now. He faced me then, wrench dropping, and we collided in a hug that bruised. Apologies mumbled into hair and jackets. I love you, he said first. The words a lifeline tossed across the chasm. I echoed them, tasting salt, tears, sweat, truth, and new weed survived the storm. Summer scorched the northwest unusual. Heat wave shimmering off asphalt as we rebuilt, brick by tentative brick. Bobby sold his truck, too many bad memories, and we pulled for you Subaru, practical for weekend getaways to the Olympics, where trails led to hidden meadows and our first real declarations under star-pricked skies. Marry me, he asked one night by a campfire. Ring simple, a silver band etched with waves, voice steady despite nerves. I said yes without hesitation, the word freeing something caged since Sarah's death. But joy's shadow is doubt, and mine manifested in nightmares, her face accusing. Too soon, or Bobby vanishing in a fog like that lake drowning. We kept it quiet at first, rings hidden under work gloves, but Tacoma's small-town vines carried whispers. At the warehouse, Jake avoided me, his crew's cold shoulders a silent verdict. Worse was the family front. Ellie's delight clashed with our parents' radio silence. Mom's Bible study guilt trips via email. Dad's gruff, sort your mess, voicemail. Bobby's folks, conservative loggers from Eatonville, fared better. His mom baked us pies laced with prayers for clarity, but his dad pulled him aside at a forced dinner. Voice low, this ain't the boy I raised. Church could fix it. Bobby laughed it off later, but I saw the fracture. The boyhood wound reopening. The real fracture hit in August. A heat lightning storm that mirrored the one brewing inside. We planned a road trip, Oregon coast, Cannon Beach for haystack rocks and fresh Dungeness crab to celebrate our engagement. En route. Phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ellie's panicked voice. Spence. It's Mom. Heart attack. ST. Joe's in Tacoma. Bad. The Subaru's tires screeched as I U-turned. Bobby white-knuckling the dash. Our idyllic escape evaporating like mist. The hospital was a déjà vu of beeps and regret. Mom frail in ICU. Dad pacing like a pen bull. She rallied enough for visitors. Her hand cold in mine. Eyes sharp despite the oxygen mask. Heard about Bobby, she rasped. No preamble. My stomach dropped. Mom, she squeezed, silencing me. Don't. I prayed for guidance. Son, God's got plans, but so do hearts. If he makes you whole. Hold on. Tears stung. Her conservatism had always been a wall, but grief had cracked it, revealing grace. Dad was tougher, cornering us in the cafeteria over vending machine coffee. This phase, it's hurting her. Bobby spoke up, voice even, not a phase. Sir, love, real as yours. Dad's jaw worked. Then he nodded. Gruff, treat him right, or I'll bury you myself. It was as close to blessing as we'd get. Mom stabilized, but the scare unearthed more, her diaries, entrusted to Ellie, chronicling years of worry over my loneliness, even with Sarah, hence she'd sensed Bobby's devotion. Reading them by lamplight, Bobby's arm around me brought catharsis, waves of forgiveness for past blindness, for Sarah's unspoken wisdom. We returned to the coast a week later, salt air healing, making love under crashing surf, not urgent, but reverent, bodies mapping new territories of trust. Fall brought harvest moons and hard choices. Bobby's shop hit a slump, loggers cutting back amid mill closures, and bills piled like fallen leaves. I pushed for second job, bartending weekends at a dive near the port, slinging IPAs to roughnecks who leered and jeered. Pretty boy got a boyfriend now, but he wears the pants. Tips were fat, but dignity thinned. Each catcall a chip at our fragile normal. Bobby hated it. Arguments flaring over late nights smelling of spilled stout. You're worth more than their bullshit, he'd say, but pride kept me at it. Provider instincts from Dad's mill worker legacy roaring. The tipping point was Halloween. Tacoma streets alive with costumed chaos. I worked the bar, crowd swelling with frat boys and fishermen. Energy electric and edged. Jake showed, 3 sheets to the wind, slamming shots and slurs. Spence, where's your fairy godmother? Laughter rippled. Ugly. And something snapped. I vaulted the bar, fist flying, connecting with his jaw in a crack that echoed. Chaos erupted, glass shattering, stools toppling, until bouncers hauled me out, bloodied lip and bruised knuckles. Bobby arrived minutes later, alerted by a coworker, his face a thundercloud as he bundled me into the car. Home was a battlefield, ice packs and accusations. You could have lost everything, he yelled, pacing the kitchen, linoleum squeaking. For what? Proving you're still one of the guys. I hurled back. Maybe I am. Maybe this, us, is just me running from real life. The words were weapons, honed from exhaustion, and they struck true. He stopped, deflating, eyes hollow. If that's how you feel. Doors open, silence stretched, taut as a bowstring, until I crossed to him, hands framing his face. No. God, no. I'm scared we'll fail. Like I failed Sarah. He pulled me close, foreheads touching. We won't. Not if we fight together. Therapy ramped up. DR. Hail, mediating our raw edges, my toxic masculinity clashing with his fear of abandonment. Progress showed in small ways. Joint applications to Seattle tech firms for better pay. Weekend hikes where we named fears aloud, turning them into jokes. But betrayal lurked. Unexpected. November. A package arrived. No sender. Addressed to Bobby. Inside, printouts of our engagement photos from the coast. Candid shots we'd posted on a private Instagram. Annotated with Bible verses on sin. And signed but reeking of his uncle's fire and brimstone rhetoric. Bobby crumpled them. Face ashen. He must have hacked Ellie's account. Always hated me for this. Rage boiled. But Bobby waved it off. Ignore it. He's poison. Easier said. The notes escalated. Voicemails ranting damnation. Tires slashed on the Subaru one foggy dawn. Fear crept in. Insidious. Making us jump at shadows. I want a confrontation. Drive to his uncle's trailer in Graham and unleash. But Bobby begged off. Don't give him power. Instead, we filed a report. Tacoma PD sympathetic but stretched thin, and installed cameras, turning our haven into a fortress. The climax brewed through December. Holidays a gauntlet. Christmas Eve, we hosted Ellie and Mark, tree twinkling with Sarah's ornaments. But tension hummed. A knock shattered the cheer. Bobby's uncle, Bible thumping and wild-eyed, flanked by a cousin. Family intervention, he bellowed, shoving pamphlets on curing homosexuality. Ellie herded Mark to the kitchen, but I stepped forward, shield raised. Not here. Not now. Words flew, his spittle-flecked tirade on unnatural unions, Bobby's quiet rebuttal. Love's not a choice. Uncle. It's grace. It devolved fast. Shoves. A lamp crashing. Ellie dialing 911. Cops arrived, diffusing with warnings, hauling the uncle away in cuffs for trespass. The house reeked of adrenaline and eggnog. Our guests shell-shocked. Bobby retreated to the porch, shaking, and I followed, wrapping him in my coat against the chill. I'm done hiding, he whispered, voice fierce. No more. We called his parents that night. Video chat over Coco. Laying it bare, our love, the threats, the plea for support. His mom wept. Dad grunted approval. Blood's thicker. Stand by your man. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. New Year's dawned crisp. Resolutions whispered over champagne. Move forward. Together. But the universe, cruel jester, had one more twist. January's mail brought a letter from Sarah's sister, Lila, in Boston, estranged since the funeral, blaming me for not fighting harder. Inside, accusations of infidelity. Whispers she'd heard about Bobby before Sarah died, implying I'd strayed. She deserved better than your confusion. The poison seeped, old wounds festering. Had Sarah doubted us? Told Lila's secrets in hospice? I confronted Bobby in the garage. Let her thrust like evidence. Did she know? About your feelings, did it? Taint things. His face crumpled, denial dying on lips. I confessed to her. Yeah. 6 months before. Swore I'd back off. But she thanked me. Said it made her love you more. Knowing you had such a heart beside you. The truth landed soft, exonerating. But my paranoia had unleashed it. I believe you, I lied. Voice hollow. And he saw through, pulling away with a sad smile. No, you don't. And that's the betrayal I can't fight. He packed that night. Duffel slung over shoulder. Eyes deadened. Space. Spence. To breathe. The door clicked shut, echoing like the first night's fracture, leaving me in a house of echoes. Sarah's. His. Mine. Days blurred into isolation. Warehouse shifts mechanical. Therapy solo and searing. Ellie checked in, Lila's number blocked. But the doubt gnawed. Was love enough against such tides? February's rains returned with vengeance, mirroring the deluge inside as I wandered Tacoma's sodden streets. Ghosts at every corner. Sarah's favorite bookstore on Pacific Avenue. Shuttered. The pier where Bobby and I fished as kids. Waves mocking my solitude. Work became exile. Jake's crew thawing into awkward nods. But nights were voids. Bed vast and cold. I texted apologies. Voicemails pleading. But silence answered. His shop radioing through a mutual friend. Needs time. Man. Give it. Desperation peaked mid-month. Valentine's shadow looming. I drove to Puyallup unannounced. Heart in throat. Finding him at his sister's kitchen table. Nursing coffee. Hollow-cheeked. Spence, he sighed. No anger. Just weariness. We walked the backyard. Mud sucking at boots. Words tumbling, my insecurities. Lila's lies. The uncle's venom compounding it all. I pushed because I cared too much. I confessed. Voice cracking. Afraid of losing you like her. He stopped. Turning. Rain mingling with tears on his face. You won't. But trust. It's the foundation. Without it, we're just pretending again. Forgiveness came slow. A thaw in fits and starts. He returned piecemeal. Dinners at Duke's. Tentative hands across Formica. Hikes where silences spoke volumes. Therapy evolved. Join again. DR. Hail guiding us through betrayal's debris. My projection of guilt onto him. His retreat masking fear of unworthiness. Spring bloomed tentative. Tulips pushing through soil like hope. And with it, commitments bloom. We sold a craftsman, too laden with loss, relocating to a bungalow in Hilltop. Tacoma's vibrant edge. Walls fresh in hours. Wedding plans unfolded quietly. A June ceremony at Lake Caphausen, the site of his near drowning, reclaimed as rebirth. Ellie officiated. Mark best man. Family a mix. My parents stoic but present. His folks beaming through initial stiffness. Vows exchanged under a willow. Rings sliding home. I choose you. Every storm. The kiss. Soft and sure. Drew cheers. Fireflies winking approval as dusk fell. Reception was potluck. Ellie's potato salad. His mom's pie. Laughter healing old scars. But life, that stubborn bastard, tested anew. July brought Bobby's diagnosis, testicular cancer. Early stage, caught from a routine check. Echoes of Sarah's fight chilled me. Nights spent pacing as he underwent surgery. Chemo's shadow looming. Irony. Huh, he joked from the hospital bed. Bald head gleaming under lights. Spirit unbroken. Your turn to be the rock. I was holding basins during nausea, rubbing his feet through fatigue, but terror gnawed. What if history repeated? What if I buried another love? He rallied, fierce as Cascadian winds. Treatments shrinking the threat. Support poured in unexpected. Jake, contrite, dropping off meals, even Lila, emailing apology after Ellie's intervention. Her grief mirroring mine. Fall deepened our bond. Remission declared under harvest moons. Celebrations quiet, picnics by the lake. Toast to survival. Yet the ordeal unearthed depths, my codependency. His perfectionism, addressed in ongoing sessions. Forging resilience. Years folded forward. Time's gentle hand smoothing edges. We adopted a mutt. Rufus, from the shelter, scruffy terrier with Bobby's grin, and renovated the bungalow, adding a studio for his woodworking, shelves for my novels, a hobby sparked in grief's quiet. Tacoma evolved around us, pride parades down Commerce Street, where we marched hand in hand, community suppers at the Methodist Church, now affirming. Secrets surfaced and settled. Sarah's full letter, found in Lila's attic. Affirming our path, Bobby's uncle. Softened by grandkids. Sending a halting card. One evening, anniversary eve, we returned to the lake. Dock creaking underfoot, stars mirroring water. Rufus splashed at frogs. Carefree, as we sat shoulder to shoulder, his head on mine. "Remember that night?" he murmured, fingers laced. The gown? Worst idea. Best catalyst. Laughter rumbled. Mine free. Shocked the hell out of me. "But you saved me." He tilted up, kiss lingering. The romantic hush wrapping us, fireflies dancing. Loons called distant. Love's quiet profundity. We've weathered more, job losses and recession. Rufus's twilight years. My own health scares, but each gale strengthens roots. Betrayal's sting fades to lesson. Conflicts to character. Misunderstandings to mercy. In this American tapestry, flawed, fierce, forgiving, we've woven our thread. Gay and unapologetic. Humanistic in its raw humanity. Not perfect, but profoundly ours. And in the end, that's the shock that endures. Love. Disguised in flannel and folly. Pretending nothing. Succeeding everything.